Hi, this is Peter Bremer. I'm a reference and instruction librarian here at Briggs Library. Today, I'm going to show you how to download, install, and use the bibliographic software called Endnote. Now, Endnote is a powerful tool. It can help you organize your research as well as create bibliographies in a snap. You can install Endnote on up to 3 personal devices, but it cannot be a cell phone. The other thing to keep in mind is that if you have already installed a previous version of EndNote, it is recommended you uninstall that older version of EndNote before installing the newest version, which is EndNote 20. And one other note, if you have some anti-spyware antivirus software on your computer, um, once in a while folks do run into trouble installing EndNote because of that. So keep that in mind. You might have to temporarily turn that off. And if you have any questions or if things come up in the install process, you can certainly reach out to a Briggs librarian. So let's actually get started, and I will show you where to go to actually find those EndNote download files, and we'll start talking about how to install them. So I'll share my screen briefly here, and I'll go ahead and we're going to go out to the Briggs Library homepage. And all you have to do is scroll down and click on Articles and Databases right down here, and then the A to Z link. And then from there, just click on the letter E, and then scroll down until you see EndNote. So this page will give you some background information about EndNote. There are some guides. It'll tell you system requirements and compatibility, which is important, and then the download files themselves. So there's 2 different download files. One is for Windows, the other is Mac. So depending on what you have, you'll want to choose the appropriate one. So we have install instructions for both. There are some Windows instructions, which is a PDF. You can open that up. It'll walk you through step by step how to actually install EndNote. And then there's some instructions for the Mac as well down here. So keep in mind that as you start that download process, your download file for EndNote is going to go wherever you've told your computer to put your download files. So usually that is the download folder, but it could be different. For Windows, you're going to double click on the install file, and then you're going to start going through that install process. Keep in mind that when you're prompted to actually do a custom install, you definitely want to do that because that will give you all the bells and whistles for EndNote. And at the end of the install process, and that process will go quicker or slower depending on your internet connection. At the end of that process, you'll be prompted to create your EndNote library. And there will be a default name, My EndNote Library. You can change it if you want. But once you have created your EndNote library, then you'll be ready to start actually using EndNote. So I'm going to stop sharing here just for a moment. And let's actually take a peek at what your EndNote library will look like. So, so EndNote 20 does look a little bit different if you've used previous versions of EndNote. But so this is EndNote. Your EndNote library will look similar to mine here. You won't have any references in it yet. You won't have any groups. But creating a group is a great way to start things out because groups will enable you to organize your research. So to create a group, all you have to do is go up to Groups and then choose Create Group. And I'm just going to choose, let's say I'm working on a physics research paper. I'll just make a physics group. Now you can make as many groups as you want. There's no limit at all. The other thing I want to point out to you here is up in Tools. If we go to Output Styles, you'll notice that there is a short list of citation styles. And these are the most popular ones, and EndNote has these already in here. You'll notice that we're currently we've currently selected MLA 8th. If there's a style that you need and it's not listed, no worries at all. All you have to do is go up to New Style, and then you can browse or search for the one you want, select it, and then it'll automatically appear in your citation window here. Okay. So speaking of windows, on the right side, we actually have a preview window. And right now, because we don't have any references, there's nothing to preview. So let's actually change that, and I'll show you how to get stuff from databases and other places into your EndNote library. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, and let's actually go out, and I'll choose a Briggs Library database. And maybe a good one to start with might be something like Academic Search Premier. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the database Academic Search Premier, a good general multi-subject database. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to type in a keyword or two. I'm going to type in bubbles, and we can start looking through our results list. So let's say this top one here, investigation of the processes of formation. Maybe that looks interesting to us for a physics research paper. So I'm going to click on that title link, and that'll bring me into the record. I can look at the bibliographic information and the summary, but what I'm really interested in is a way to get this reference into my EndNote library. And so I'm looking for something similar to export. And there's export on the right side. We have an export option, and it may actually be labeled something slightly different, or it might be in a slightly different place depending on the database you're in. But in Academic Search Premier, we're looking for export. And so when we click on that, you'll notice this top option, Direct Export in RIS Format, is already selected, and it even has the word EndNote, which is really helpful, right? So that's what we're looking for, is we're looking for RIS and EndNote in our options. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and that's going to start the process of getting this particular reference into my EndNote library. So when I click Save, what should happen is you should see this Direct Export helper appear. Now, it's recommended that you use Mozilla Firefox as your browser, because EndNote works best with Firefox, and you're guaranteed to see this Direct Export helper. Other browsers like Chrome and Safari, you may not see the Direct Export helper, or there may be more steps to get your citation, your reference into your EndNote library. The other thing to keep in mind is before you say OK and you open that helper, make sure your EndNote library is already open. So mine is, so I'm just going to say OK. And then in a moment, we should actually see this particular reference appear in our library. And I'm going to go ahead and go into my EndNote library, and there it is. So if I actually select that reference, if I click on it, it's actually appearing over in the right side now. So I can see that. If I want to get it into a group, all I have to do is drag and drop, and now it is in my physics group. So before I just had a 0, and now I have a 1. I'm just going to stop sharing just for a moment. Okay, let's actually go back into our EndNote library for a moment. And if we look at that particular reference we have in the preview window, we're going to notice that we have, next to the summary, we have this edit option. And when we click on the edit option, that's going to open up that particular reference, and we're going to see all kinds of different fields, okay? And some of these are going to be populated from the reference in our database. But there are some others that you can actually fill in yourself. And so one of those is research notes, right? And so you can put a reminder to yourself in research notes, and you can look at that later. You might say, remind yourself, well, check references, something that might jog your memory as to why this article was important. And even though it doesn't look like it, you actually have all kinds of room to write notes. And these are all searchable within Endnote as well. The other thing I want to point out is down here we see this attach file option. And so because we only have the citation, we might want to put the full text together with it, and then they'll all be in the same place, which is kind of handy. So to do that, all we have to do is simply go back to our database where we found that article. And if there's full text readily available, and in this case there is, all we have to do is actually open that up. And then I'm just going to open that in my Adobe program. And then I'm just going to save it. And we can call this file whatever we want. Okay. And so I'm going to say, yep, I'm going to save it to the desktop. And I'm going to take a keyword from the title and maybe remind myself what database I got it from, Academic Search Premier. And I'm going to save it. And then I can close that out. And so now, right, now if I actually go back into my Endnote program, and if I go to attach file, I can browse for that particular file. So I'm going to browse through, and I have quite a few here. And so I'm looking for investigation, and there it is. And so I just select it, and now that particular article is matched and wedded with that reference. And then I'll just save it. So now you'll notice when we look at this particular citation, there's a paperclip on it, which means there's an article. Okay, so those are some handy things you can do once you have the reference in. So let's say you have references in your Endnote library. How do you go about actually creating your bibliographies in Microsoft Word? So for that, I'm going to go ahead and let's actually bring up a Word document. I'll show you. So here's the start of my research paper. And so the important thing is that if you're doing parenthetical citations, you want to have your cursor exactly where you want that parenthetical citation to appear. The other thing is that once you're in Word, you'll notice there's an Endnote 20 tab here. And so I'm going to click on that, and that will bring up some choices that I can actually select for Endnote. So to get a reference in to my paper, one way to do it is to just go to Insert Citation. And so I'm going to choose Insert Citation, and then you can actually search by author or by title. Now I remember that the article that I want to cite right here has the word investigation in the title. I could have actually searched by author as well. So once that's selected, you just hit Insert, and then that's actually going to put that particular reference in your paper. Okay, and it's going to actually build it by putting in your parenthetical citation right in your Word document, and then actually making a bibliography underneath that. And it'll do that alphabetically. And so we'll just give it a moment here to actually, so I can show you what that. Okay, so let's actually let's go back into that Word document here, and I can show you what that reference looks like in the Word document. So it's put in the parenthetical citation, and beneath it, it's starting to build our reference list. So one thing to keep in mind is that once you've put in information, data from your Endnote library, it's not easily removed or edited in the traditional way. You can't really just delete or edit, but you can use this Edit and Manage Citation choice up here, and then you can tweak and change aspects of how that's appearing in your document. So that is a brief overview of Endnote 20, how to download, install, and use Endnote. So if you have any questions, reach out to a librarian here at Briggs using our Ask a Librarian service, and we'd be happy to help you. Good luck with Endnote, and we hope to see you in the library.